Welcome back to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. I am J.R. Lay, and today my co-host Derik Krauss and I are going to explore a major shift that's already reshaping how people search, how they shop, how they make purchase decisions when it comes to financial products online. You see, new research coming from Semrush forecasts that AI-driven search will surpass traditional Google searches by 2028, possibly even sooner than that. That's why our conversation today is not just about technology, it's a conversation about the seismic changes when it comes to consumer behavior, how technologies like AI search are changing that behavior, and the impact that these consumer behavior shifts will have on your financial brand's future growth in not the years to come, but the months to come. So if you've historically relied on SEO, on Google, on pay-per-click, to drive awareness, to drive acquisition, now's the time to ask yourself, are you prepared for what's next, for what's coming, for what's already here? But first, if you are curious to see how your financial brand stacks up in AI search results, send me a text right now, 832-240-1922. That's because my friends over at Paraloom want to help you track. They want to help you analyze. They want to help you optimize your financial brand's visibility in the age of AI by giving you a free AI search benchmark report. I say we start talking on what's coming from Semrush. I was thinking Ahrefs. So we're looking at this from two different data angles. But what are you seeing in regards to the prediction over the next 18 to 24 months, which is not that far away when it comes to the shift of consumer behavior?
Yeah, so Semrush, they put out a study about a month ago, and what they found in the study is based on current trends, current usage. They're forecasting that AI search is going to overtake Google search by 2028 or much sooner than that, which is crazy to think about because Google's been the king of the internet for the last 20 to 30 years, and Google search has been the main driver of that. And Google's obviously, they're in the game as well with AI, but by far the biggest leader in the AI space is OpenAI with ChatGPT, and there's some others as well, like Perplexity and Claude and Grok, but people are turning to those apps more for searches and to get information more and more often, and less often are they going to Google, which is obviously a huge shift.
And I want to bring this up because this is about something I observe, study, when it comes to digital anthropology, the intersection of marketing, sales, tech, and human behavior. And if we look back at the shift of human behavior, specifically through the lens of financial services, externally changes are happening. There are consumer behavior shifts in the way that people shop for, buy, apply for financial services, financial products, loans, etc., deposits. But it's the internal perspective, it's the internal shift that is lagging, I would say pretty poorly. And as a result, there's a growing gap of perception because someone watching or listening to this, their behavior might not have caught up to the shifts that are happening in the world at an exponential rate. So for example, you also might be like, oh yeah, my behavior shifting. I am now utilizing these large language models in my own day-to-day. So I'm going there more and Google less. Mm-hmm. But others in the organization might not have that level of awareness. So why is it important that we talk about this subject now? Because when you look at this research coming out of Semrush and Ahrefs, 18 months is not that far away.
No, it's not, because the pace at which AI is accelerating and changing things is drastic. It's possible that this is the fastest any technology has been adopted, at least in recent memory. I mean, we already know that ChatGPT is the fastest adopted app, but just AI solutions in general, it's at a crazy pace that it's changing everything. And there's some new breakthrough or some new big release that's happening almost constantly. And so I think the risk for financial institutions and really any organization is that when you have such a big technological innovation like this, it leads to disruption. We've talked about disruptive innovation multiple times on past episodes. And when disruptive innovation comes along, you're either the disruptor or the disrupted. You either get on board with the change, and there's research to show that those that adopt new disruptive innovation early, that's where, so when there's the debate about first mover advantage versus
It's a big part of
second mover. Yeah.
Exactly. Early adopters and the laggards. And I think a lot of financial brands think that they're an early adopter. And they, in fact, very well could be an early adopter comparative to peer.
Sure.
But in the reality of the fact, when you look outside of the shifts of consumer behavior and then the technological landscape that's driving that, and then the competitive landscape, you're actually a laggard and not an early mover. So I just want to put a preface on that. Go back to your thought of first mover advantage.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the innovator's dilemma, and in that book, Clayton Christensen, the author, Harvard professor, he studied this, and what he found is there are different types of innovations, right? You've got what he deems disruptive innovations and sustaining innovations. So the idea of a sustaining innovation is that you take something that's already like well developed and you're just adding features onto it or making it a little bit better, and that's important. You have to keep making something better that's expected in the market. So he talks a lot about examples with disk drives. So if you think about a disk drive for a computer, well, if you've got a disk drive for a laptop, you want the memory to get better and better over time. But then a disruptive innovation is when you've got the smartphone that comes along and it's got a different need, and what works for the laptop doesn't work for the smartphone. So that comes about as a potentially disruptive innovation. It's competing in a different way. And so the point is, when you have what he studied is, when does first mover make sense, or when does it make sense to wait and see, and when does it not matter? And based on his research, what he found is with sustaining innovations, it actually doesn't really matter if you're first mover or if you're second mover, or if you even lag behind a little bit, as long as you keep pace well enough. But when a disruptive innovation comes along, first mover advantage is huge. If you lag behind, then you get left behind. Whereas if you leap out with that disruptive innovation, the returns that companies get in terms of profitability, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's an order of magnitude more profitable when companies adopt disruptive innovation quickly and are first movers. So I think the big risk for financial institutions is falling if you're not a first mover in adopting it, then you're a laggard. You will get behind. It's just that the technology is advancing so rapidly, you'll easily get left behind in the next year or two if you don't start doing something to adopt it now.
So I want to pause and and politely push back on this
Sure.
and play devil's advocate from those who might be watching or
Yeah.
listening. And I get it, Derek. I understand where you're coming from. Risk. It's our risk profile and our risk tolerance that prevents us from being that first mover. It's our risk tolerance and our risk profile, our need, our inherent biologically built in need to minimize risk. And I want to address that because when what we're talking about today in regards to the way that people shop, buy, search, find a financial product, what risk, and I think there's two sides of the coin. What risk must we be mindful of if we are slow to move on this? Because you're talking about 18 months horizon line of the AI search overtaking historical Google search. That's number one. And then number two, what's the risk that we must be mindful of if we do go ahead and begin to think, plan, take action to prepare for the inevitable shift of consumer behavior when it comes to search?
I mean, tell me what you think as well, but I think if you're going to talk about risk, you have to talk about it on both sides. You can say there's a risk in adopting, but there's also a risk in not adopting. So from my perspective, I don't know. I know that there are people out there. I don't personally know any, but I know that there are people out there that are like anti AI, or they don't believe that AI, like maybe that it's overhyped and it's not really going to have this huge impact like everyone thinks it's going to have. I feel like anyone that
Is there any risk, though? Is there any risk in regards to thinking about the shift of consumer behavior and then taking action to meet people where they are? Because if you think about marketing as meeting people where they are, where they're showing up, where they're searching, and I'm trying to think of a risk of taking action for this. Well, and maybe we can shift to action just a bit.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a major risk that could be damaging to a financial brand. I think the greater risk is in inaction at this point.
I agree. Although, to play devil's advocate, the main thing that I can think of as risk of taking action now is everyone's still trying to figure out the full impact of AI. And so you, in some ways, have to step out into the darkness a bit. You have to forge ahead with it with the best that you can figure out right now. And there's a chance that the direction you go in could be the wrong direction. And so you have to pause, maybe back up a little bit and redirect yourself in the right way. So just a simple example of that, before we started recording, we were talking about this. My business partner and I, we talk about AI and the impact of AI every day, like at least multiple times per week, and we're actively working on it. And we could see clearly that people are now using AI to search for things. And we could see that there are beginnings of people being able to use AI to take actions, right? Actions meaning beyond just learning about who can give you an auto loan, for instance, now have AI apply for complete the auto loan application for me. So we could see that actions were coming, but we weren't quite sure how they were going to come about. And we were thinking, well, for right now, maybe we need to set up what are called custom GPTs in ChatGPT, because that allows you to connect with like via API to different services. And then that way you
Yeah.
can open the door for actions. But then yesterday, ChatGPT released a new agent tool that makes it so that now ChatGPT is much better and more widely available for using websites kind of like humans do. And so that opens the door for actions that weren't possible like 2 days ago. So we started going in a direction. We didn't go very far in that direction because just trying to figure it out, but we kind of started to think and go down the wrong path a little bit, and then something brand new comes out and I go, oh, okay, well, forget that. Now it's this direction. So yeah, I think there's some possible risk there, but would I rather be in that position versus sitting back and waiting to see everything that happens before taking any action? No way, because we like
Part of the learning process.
yeah, like we've now since we decided to take action on it, we've been working on things with AI for I don't know, at least a year and a half, maybe coming up on 2 years now. And if we hadn't done anything, I just like I can't even imagine being like taking away all the progress that we've made over the last year and a half because we were just waiting to see. I think we'd be in a really like far worse spot than just like going off in a little bit of a wrong direction sometimes.
Well, and that's where you have a different perspective, and that's been a big common theme of our conversation since you started co-hosting. It's a matter of perspective, and it's not right, wrong, good or bad. And you mentioned before the adoption rate of ChatGPT, and it's hard for I think people to wrap their minds around the speed of adoption and the speed of change. You can talk about it philosophically, but in the team alignment workshops, I use this example to where Uber, when Uber launched, I believe it was 2008, 2009 time period, and it took Uber 5 years and 10 months to go from 0 to 100 million users. It took Spotify 55 months, so 4 years, 7 months. It took Pinterest 41 months, 3 years, 5 months. It took Instagram 30 months, so 2 years and 6 months. And then as we continue down this progression, musically, i.e. TikTok, took TikTok 9 months to go from 0 to 100 million users. And then on that November 30th, was it 2022, I believe? I know it was November 30th. It's just my years. It's like, it's the speed
For
now.
ChatGPT?
It was 2022.
Either that or 2023. I don't know. It was.
That's wild, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like if small 2 months to go from 0 to 100 million users.
That's crazy.
And so, and here we are, and we're like, it's only been just a couple of years since this has reached the mass consciousness of the human conversation. We are seeing the major swings of search behavior, human behavior, consumer behavior. I want to bring this back to your focus and area of study and what you've been working on, like you said, for the last year and a half, because you're building a very good perspective, in my opinion, one of the best to leading the industry here, because you've done an analysis of ChatGPT responses to help uncover what causes a site to show up in AI search.
Right.
There's science now.
Mm-hmm.
There's data studying this like a scientist. What are you observing here through through these studies. In fact, I think when we were talking the other day, you mentioned that you've got 100 financial brands now that you're observing data through large language or AI search. What are you observing?
Yeah,
with these
100
patterns?
organizations, not 100% of them are credit unions or banks or financial services, but the vast majority of them are. Probably 80% of them are. So yeah, most of the data set is coming from financial services. And I've got up on my other screen here an executive summary of the research that I may look over here a bit to remind myself of some of the notes as we're talking about it.
You don't have it off the top of your head yet. You should know this.
I know some of the key ones, but I want to make sure I don't forget anything that's crucial. So yeah, some background story here. And we've talked about our history of where, when I say we, I mean myself and my business partner, where we came from and how we got to where we are. And I think it's important to give a little bit of history here. So we started off building websites for credit unions, and then started really focusing on A/B testing. We built software around the A/B testing process. It's called Metrify, and we've accomplished some really great things working with financial institutions around A/B testing. But earlier this year, Harmon, that's my business partner, Harmon and I were talking. We said, wow, okay, we've built all these AI features into Metrify, which lets you use AI to build web pages. But until earlier this year, it didn't fully occur to us. We're like, okay, hold on. Yes, we're using AI to build web pages, but we're using AI to build web pages for humans, for people visiting websites. And we realized, wait, it's not just people visiting websites anymore. It's AI agents visiting websites. Whoa, okay, that's a twist with AI that we hadn't thought about. And we said, oh, wow, this has the potential, and we actually believe it's going to eventually disrupt everything that we've built for the last 10 years around human web, because now there's agentic web. And so we saw that.
It took me a while to figure out how to say that word. Just, I mean, I live in this stuff myself, but it's like until you taught me the pronunciation, I wanted just to say, hey, I'm even struggling with this from time to time.
It's new for everyone, and that's not even that's a term that I'm seeing more and more. But it's so early that for a lot of these things, there aren't even solidified terms for everything. That's just the term that we've ended up adopting, because you need some sort of term. But so we looked at that and we said, this actually goes back to exactly what you were talking about with risk. We said to ourselves, all right, what do we do here? There's things are changing so quickly. So many of the things aren't solidified. So how do we move forward in a concrete way without having all the answers? And we said, you know what? We just have to move forward the best we can with what we do know. And there's this giant incoming wave. We want to be part of it rather than being crushed by it. We want to be the disruptors, not the disrupted. And so we said, what do we know for sure? Well, what we know for sure is when it comes to AI search, what is pretty well solidified at this point is that you can measure how often a brand is being mentioned by ChatGPT. So if someone goes to go back to a story that we talked about, a story that I shared in a past episode is earlier this year, I needed some new basketball shoes. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, I'm getting old. Help me find some basketball shoes that'll make it so my knees don't hurt when I'm playing basketball. And So it went and found Nike, Reebok, Adidas, and one Under Armour. But what about all the other shoe companies that didn't show up? Because there were way more than the ones I just listed. So how come those ones showed up and the other ones didn't? And that's the big question. It's a similar question to search engine optimization with Google. Who's showing up on page one of the search results, but now in a new context with AI. So I wanted to give that background to say that, like, I think that ties into everything we're talking about and kind of gives the genesis for how we got this data. So, all right, now going back to your original question, we built this tool called Paralume that measures AI visibility, and within Paralume, like you said, about 100 organizations in there, and this was a few weeks ago. It'd be more now, but as of a few weeks ago, there were about 2,500 prompts that we had sent over to AI. So a prompt is like, where can I get the best checking account? Find me the best place to get an auto loan. Who has the best mortgage rates in Salt Lake City? So on. So 2,500 of those prompts across 100 different organizations. And then you run those prompts multiple times. So you send them over to AI like ChatGPT, and ChatGPT comes back with responses, and then you log all of those responses. We logged, I think at the time of the research that I told you about, it was 7,500. I think we might be like double that at this point, but we've logged at least 8,000 different responses. That's a rich data set to try and understand why certain organizations are showing up and why others aren't, because within those responses there are different pieces of context that the AI gives. Yes, it will list organizations, but it will explain why it mentioned them. It will give sources to how they found that organization. And sometimes those sources are URLs that go over to a web page on their website, or other times they are sources that go to a third party like Yelp or Bankrate or NerdWallet. And so what we wanted to understand is, we take that whole data set, what can we learn from it about how AI is determining who to mention and who to not mention. So here's what we've learned so far. First, AI mentions sources and web pages that directly answer prompts. So if I'm looking for the best mortgage rate in Salt Lake City, if there's a piece of content on the web that exists that directly answers my question, then it's more likely to show up than some content that, might have some information about rates, but it's not specific to Salt Lake City, or just doesn't appear to be as a direct and specific answer to my questions. That's the first thing.
I want to pause you on this point because this is where I think things get real practical, and it's like, this is what I get excited about, because this is the next level of search. It's being driven by the shift of human behavior, but now it's AI going out and searching the internet.
Right.
I'm asking for clarity on this, because I don't think, there might be someone watching or listening who might not fully understand the mechanics. And without getting too technical, I just wanted to draw the connection between, historically, we as humans would go out and search the internet with Google.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as coming back to Semrush report, we're shifting from Google search to AI search.
Right.
now we're searching AI, or we're asking AI a question. Now AI is then going out and finding far more many resources far faster than we ever could. And then based upon the relevancy of said, and we'll just say, call it data, information, then that's what's being presented back via the AI search. I just want to make sure that I am understanding this for others to understand as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you said, like, so I think when we've talked about this in the past, you're a ChatGPT user, right? That's
Pro.
okay. Yeah. Oh, you got the pro account, huh? Nice. So yeah, when you'll go ask ChatGPT.
I'm not a pro user. Yeah. I want to clarify. I'm not a pro user. I'm a student using the pro account.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's a pro user. I mean, even I use it all the time, and I use it for a ton of stuff, but there's so much to learn there. But when you use it, and
I'll pause you real fast. Yeah. Hey, Audrey, because Audrey's producing. Can you take a note on this, Audrey? I think we should do an episode, and perhaps even get Audrey to come in on this episode, to the practical ways that we're using AI in our day-to-day. And the reason I bring this up is, and I was facilitating a workshop a week ago, and there's a marketing team of 9 or 10 people, and they're starting to really bring this into their day-to-day. But I asked them, how often are you sharing learnings of how because once again, it's a matter of perspective. And someone had made a reference like, oh yes, I was just talking to Jim about this, and he had no idea that you could do that.
Oh yeah.
So I think that would be a really fun episode.
That would be
to provide some perspective of the way that you're using it, I'm using it, Audrey's using it. We're all doing it a little bit different. Maybe even bringing Ryan on this one. So I digress. I'm going to come back, but I just thought that would be a really, really fun conversation.
Yeah, that would be a fun conversation. And so when you use ChatGPT, you'll ask it something, and then you'll see it says to you, searching the web.
Yes.
So sometimes an LLM, and I was using LLM in a conversation the other day, and someone stopped me. They're like, "What's LLM? I haven't heard that before." So LLM stands for large language model, and so ChatGPT is an example of a large language model. So sometimes when you ask for information, an AI app, an LLM like ChatGPT may already, like, the way that the LLMs are built is by basically consuming the internet. And so it may already have the answer logged without having to go search for information at all. So that happens. Correct. Or in other cases, if it will go and do a search of the internet, and again, like you said, without getting into the technical terms, it's basically doing a web search just like we would within Google. So, and it's go ahead.
My question is, if we think about this 18-month horizon line to bring it all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, what can someone who is watching or listening to our conversation, what can they do to actively prepare and begin to take action now, so that we're not waiting 6, 12, 18 months, so that whenever the consumer behavior shift is upon us, it's almost like, I mean, I live in Houston. The way that I look at this, and we've been down this path before with the internet and the adoption of other technologies, as I was mentioning before. So it's almost like we're seeing, it's like a hurricane. It's like I'm on the Gulf Coast. I'm in Houston. I think that's the benefit and the blessing. It's like we know that there's something in the Gulf that's going to make landfall somewhere. We have time to prepare. And I guess that's my point of my question is, what can someone watching or listening do to begin to prepare? And perhaps we even dive further into this, but at a very, very high level right now, knowing what we know, what can they begin to do to prepare for this shift of consumer behavior, but also the aspect that AI search will one day, in fact, overtake traditional Google search, which so many institutions have historically relied upon for awareness, for purchase.
Yeah. Start measuring how often your brand shows up in AI responses. So that's called AI visibility. That's exactly why we built Paraloom. Paraloom.ai is the web address. We built it because we realized this massive shift was happening. We wanted to help our clients to start to measure how often their brand is showing up, which prompts they're showing up for, and which ones they're not showing up for. That's really step number one, is to start measuring that. And then once you know what you are and what you are not showing up for, you can target the ones you're not showing up for. So let's say you're not showing up for that prompt we were talking about, best mortgage rates in Salt Lake City. Then you can work with AI to analyze the response data that you've logged to find out who is showing up, why are they showing up, what content have they published that's causing them to show up, or what have third parties said about them, like, again, a NerdWallet or a Money Rates, that's causing them to show up. So you find what's actually causing people to show up in those responses, and then you can take action based on that. You can publish something on your own website or on a third party that's going to help you to show up in those responses next time. That's really the action to take here.
Well, I like the way you frame this AI visibility, and it connects back to something that I'm extremely passionate about when I was writing Banking on Change, that there are four steps that lead to human transformation. And it all starts, step one is just seeing things differently. And with a platform like Paraloom, getting that perspective, getting that visibility, getting that understanding of where, why, how, I think is a fantastic, easy first step. And I think we continue this conversation because, to your point, then what? I don't want to talk about the then what, because there are the four steps. You see things differently first, and when you begin to see things differently, your thought patterns begin to change. Mm-hmm. Just because your thought patterns change doesn't mean you're going to take action. You have to have an emotional shift. Your emotions, your feelings. We're not going to get a touchy feeling just yet. And I do it in Team Align workshops all the time, and I love it because that's where the change happens. And I think that's what we often miss. But you're bringing up a very good point that I think we'll wrap up on here. It's coming back to content. Something, once again, it's like I wrote about this in Banking Growth. Like content is the key. It's the core to digital growth. It's communication. So that will be a really good discussion too, that I think we can dive down further. But coming back to how we open this up, we do know consumer behavior is shifting because technology is changing at an exponential rate. Having that level of awareness is one thing, but having the courage to commit to begin to take some sort of action today, not waiting 6 months from now, and start something now. And I think your recommendation and the fact that you're even building the platform and leading the way, it reduces the risk. So I'm just going to say, hey, here's the call out. Here's your call to action. Give Derik a call or send him a text. And I'm saying this because you listen to this show. I care immensely for you because you're investing your time and your energy and your attention to hang out with us. I'm all in on your success. So
yeah, send me a text, 661-979-9395. And again, Paraloom.ai, if you want to go and start there. Right now there's free registration. So,
and that's the thing. He's not trying to sell you anything. He's just trying to help bring some visibility to where you're at and see where and uncover the opportunity. So text them, do it, and we'll see you on the next episode. If today's conversation helped you level up your thinking when it comes to AI search, when it comes to getting found via search in the age of AI, send me a text right now, 832-240-1922, because I want to send you a free AI search benchmark report from my friends over at Paraloom, who can help you track, who can help you analyze, who can help you optimize your visibility as a bank, as a credit union in the age of AI.